Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut this stylish asymmetric princess darts dress. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. Let's dive right into today's video. So to start, here is my pattern and I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline. For this pattern I'm also using a bust dart. So now I'm going to go ahead to mark out my shoulder divided by 2 plus half, because this dress has a sleeve, and I'll come down by 1 inch. Before drawing my shoulder slope, I'll mark my neckline and I'll be using 2.7 inches, and I will go down by 2.5 inches. So this is a total neckline. You don't want your dress to be slacking at the neckline of the dress. From there I'll connect it to the shoulder, and after this I'll be marking out my armhole. So to get that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and at that point I'll rule a straight line. I'll go ahead and mark my shoulder plus ½ inch at that same line, just to make sure I have a straight line at that point, and I will connect. After this I'll divide my armhole into 2, and from that point I'll mark ½ inch, and I will mark my bust circumference divided by 4 at my chest line. Go ahead to connect from the bust to the ½ inch, and from there to the upper part. I'll go ahead to mark my dart intake, which will start by marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. I'll go ahead to connect and draw a straight line. After I'm done drawing out, the next step I'll take is to go ahead to mark my dart intake. For my dart intake, I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides. So you can actually mark ½ inch at the front and mark 1.5 at the other side, or you can just go ahead to share it equally 1 inch at both sides. For a plus size, use 1.5 inches, making it a 3 inches dart. And I'll also connect from the bust to the under bust. Now I'll go in with my marker and I'll outline this to make it more visible for you to see. After I'm done outlining, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark out the princess dart on the dress. I'll fold my tape into 2, make a mark at the midpoint. From that point I'll connect to the armhole. After I'm done connecting this way, I'll be marking ½ inch on both sides of my pattern, and I will be connecting this all the way to the initial dart line. So after I'm done outlining, I'll go ahead and I will use my marker to outline this to make it visible. So now I'll extend this by 1 inch. That is that dart intake we took, and I'll blend it to my armhole. Use my marker and I'll outline the rest of my pattern. Now after I'm done doing this, I'll go in by inserting my measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. My bust is 33 divided by 4. I have 8.3. Measure that 1 inch dart and add my sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Measure the dart intake replace and add my sewing allowance. Going down to the waist, I'll go ahead to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. Measure this dart intake replace, and I will add my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead to connect from the bust down to the under bust and to the waistline, and I'll blend the rest that. Go ahead to use my marker to outline this, and after this I'll just go ahead to mark my bust dart, which is 1.5. So how did I get my bust dart? It is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 inches. My shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5, giving me a difference of 1.5 inches. I went ahead to mark and I will shed it out. Now I'll just go ahead and I will cut out this pattern. So after I'm done cutting this out, I'll go ahead to trace out all these measurements on the other side. So this is my pattern paper. After I'm done marking out the other measurements, and we'll start working on the pattern. So that is the center of my pattern. From the neckline, go out by 1.5 or 2 inches. From there I'll draw like a curve. Getting towards the midpoint, I'll go out a little, and from that center I'll mark 1 inch, and then I'll draw like a curve and connect. Now I'll connect this to my under bust. So this is what I have at this point, and I'll go ahead to use my marker and I will outline at this point to make it more visible for you to see. I'll also go ahead to underline the underbust area of this dress. So from this point, I'll connect from the princess dart point and I'll draw a curve, mark that same 1 inch from the center, and I'll be connecting to the underbust and to the other side of the pattern. So this is what I have here, and this is the illusion part of this dress. And after this, we are done drafting out the front pattern, and I'll go ahead to cut this out. So if you have any question regarding this tutorial, please leave your question at the comment section. And at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. So also for your bust dart, remember to blend it up also before cutting out your dress. So this is what I have on this pattern. After cutting, we'll move over to the back pattern. So for more cutting and sewing tutorials, for those asking me, you can also check out my second YouTube channel, which is Marky's Closet. There I do both drafting and sewing tutorial. So after this, we are moving over to the back pattern of the dress. For the back pattern of this dress, I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurement, which includes my shoulder to bust, under bust, waistline. So how I marked out this pattern is still the same thing as the front. So you notice my shoulder to waist is 15.5 at the back. For the neckline, I use the same neck width at the front, and the depth I use 1 inch. So now I'll start off by marking my dart intake, which I'll also mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'll draw a straight line. So this measurement I marked started immediately my zipper line. For the dart intake, I'll mark 1/2 inch on both sides, come down by 1 inch here, and I will be connecting this from the bust down to the under bust. And for this dress, you can go ahead to create a princess dart effect at the back, or you can just leave a basic back pattern. I'll go ahead and use my marker and I will outline this. After I'm done doing this, I'll go ahead to outline the rest of my pattern and go ahead to insert my body measurement. While inserting my body measurement, all my measurements start immediately after the zipper. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. Mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to connect from the chest line to the bust and down to the waistline. And to get rid of the bulginess at the back of the dress, to make it sit very well, I went in by 1/2 inch and I extended it all the way up. Now this 1/2 inch, you can decide to replace it at the back of your dress. It doesn't really take out anything or cause any problem. The reason why we took out that 1/2 inch in front is just to make that back part to go in very well and relax. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out, and we are done drafting our back pattern. So now we move over to drafting our basic sleeve, and for here I've gone ahead to mark out my starting point and I've gotten my sleeve length. So the next step I'm going to mark is my shoulder to elbow point. And after marking your shoulder to elbow point, the next point is your total sleeve length, which I'll be marking at the lower part also. From here, you want to get your sleeve cap height, and to get that is your bust circumference divided by 12 plus 0.5 inches. Now I'll draw out a line at that point. So from here, I'm going to go ahead to connect to the upper part of my pattern, but first I went ahead to mark out all my basic measurements. So before connecting to the upper part, you're going to mark your armhole circumference divided by 2. So after marking that, from this point you connect to the upper part of your pattern this way. After I'm done connecting this, I'm going to divide this into 2 and I will mark. And after marking, I'll divide one side again into 2 this way and mark. Now I'll come up by 1/2 inch at this point. The remaining half, I'll go ahead to fold my tape again and mark. From that point, I'll come down by 1/2 inch and I will connect from this line to the first 1/2 inch we came up and then connect to the midpoint. So this is just how to draw out a basic sleeve. So from the midpoint, I'll connect to the 1/2 inch we went down below and to the armhole circumference where it stops. So this is what I have. This is just the armhole curve at this point, and I'm going to mark. So to make sure this really fits to your dress, after you're done sewing, you can just measure what you have all the way and just check. So you want to go ahead and insert your elbow circumference divided by 2 and you add your sewing allowance. After that, you're going to go down to the wrist and you're going to measure what you have round there and add your sewing allowance, and you're going to place your cuff drew and connect. So for me, if you're marking a sleeve, it doesn't really need too much sewing allowance. 1 or 1.5 inches should be okay, unless you want to add extra to it in case if you add and you want to loosen the part of your sleeve. So I'll just go ahead and cut this, and with this we have come to the end of today's tutorial. If you find this video very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, and at the upper part I added 1/2 inch which will serve as joining allowance for the sleeve. Thanks.